ending up in loyalty. And as you can see, that's a big funnel. We have lots and lots of people attracted to what we're doing. And the goal is to take them from awareness through conversion, engagement, all the way to loyalty. And before us today, you have a great panel of experienced direct-to-consumer people, experts in their field, but they're also experts in relationships. So Jennifer Becker, who's founder of Ensemble Marketing, is going to take us through the awareness cycle. She's great at attracting people. Pamela Hyatt, regional sales director, regional direct sales manager for Jackson Family Wines, is going to talk to us about converting because we hear that she knows how to get the first date. And no one better to talk to us about engagement or loyalty than Dan Michael, and you're going to hear why and just how he's earned that reputation when he gives his presentation. He's marketing director for Ernest Young. So he's going to take us through engagement and how to keep them. The question is, why do we really care about this life cycle? First of all, it's a consumer view of the business. It's a very holistic view of the business. Secondly, when we think about customers and their life cycle and we really focus on them, what we do is we get more loyal customers, they tell their friends, and ultimately we end up with more customers who are fans of our businesses. Last but not least, the framework that we're going to lay out for you here in this presentation will help you uncover marketing opportunities. So a focus on this will help you decipher other opportunities within your database and within your organization. It's really important to set up some definitions before we begin because we're going to be talking about metrics. So the first thing you need to do for your business is define who a customer is for your business. Are they purchasers? Or are you going to consider anyone who walks in your door a customer? Most businesses consider a customer as a purchaser. And then the only question would be, how are you going to segment that portion of the database? So you may consider a customer someone who's purchased as recently as 6 months ago. Another business may consider a customer someone who purchased 18 months ago. Whatever it is, this is one thing you're going to hear throughout our presentation. There aren't any wrong or right answers. The only thing you need to do is decide for yourself what that definition is and be consistent about it. Prospects also normally considered to be someone who's never purchased, but they may be aware of us. I think the third point is really important then. Define the life cycle for your business. We're going to talk about awareness through loyalty. If it begins with the first purchase, when is the customer dead with your company? Never? Do you ever write them off? Do you ever stop communicating with them? Some companies use recency as the indicator. Some wineries may use club shipment, last club shipment fulfilled. Whatever it is, again, define it for your business. And then a common definition in direct-to-consumer is RFM. Recency, frequency, monetary. All that refers to basically is how recently someone purchased from you, how often they purchased from you, and of course what their spend is, either on an annual basis or last purchase. With those definitions, we can start talking about metrics during our presentation. But we wanted you to know that metrics are only one step on the path. They're not the be-all, end-all. They flow from strategy through tactics, and analysis is a key part of this. If you don't stop and really analyze your data and the metrics, you're not going to get back to goals, again, which won't inform strategy. So we feel that metrics are just one piece of the puzzle, but it has to begin with the strategy and the goals for your business. So metrics, define them for yourself based on your business strategy. Keep them consistent. And please, we all know this, measure what you can influence. If you're collecting a piece of data that you really aren't going to use or take action with, it's not a good use of time. So what we want to know today is where you think your company is on this scale of commitment to direct-to-consumer life cycle. How embedded is your company in this process? So by show of hands, if you don't mind, if your company is interested, at least, but you still maybe don't have all the funding or upper level support that you need, raise your hand. How many of you would say that your companies are interested, but you don't have all the support you need? Yeah? You can, maybe we should start at the bottom and go up, right? How many people feel that their company is invested and actually we're still not really connected to profitability, but we have things in place? Some, a few. And committed. Are your companies committed to the customer? And if so, do your executives understand how it's connected to results? Any of those? A little more, a few more. Engaged. An excellent customer experience is a core part of your strategy. About the same as the last section. And embedded. A positive customer experience is part of your company's DNA. Any of those? Great. Great. Mitch? That's wonderful.
Any job?
So it was interesting. You all could see all those. There was kind of a spread across all of the categories. Not one was more important than the other. Our goal is to get you to the next level of this continuum, so that you maybe today move from just interested to the level up. We hope that you're going to leave with a better understanding of customer life cycle. We want you to see where your business is on this graph. We want you to leave with examples of metrics that you can take back to your wineries, back to your businesses and use. And we know that you're going to hear some ideas for great marketing campaigns and activities to help get your customers to the next level of loyalty. And just so you know, we're going to have questions and answers at the end of the presentation, so just hold them to answer them. And only one more bit of housekeeping, the feedback form. Before you leave today, you'll fill that out for us. We really appreciate it. And so Jennifer is going to talk about attraction and awareness.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer. The first part of a relationship, as everyone knows, is getting noticed. So I'm here to talk about getting noticed. How many of you have seen or know somebody who has seen a decrease in the traffic to your winery? And what is the primary reason for that trend? The economy. Okay, so we're in a bad economy, and if you combine a bad economy with somewhat non-proactive approach to generating awareness or getting noticed, it's a bad combination. And the good news is that doing a better job with generating awareness is it's easy. We're not going to talk about very high-tech tools today about doing that. And the other bit of good news is that the very few wineries that, in my experience, do a very focused, disciplined, consistent job see tremendous results. So it's more important than ever in this economy to do a very good job and develop a seriously proactive awareness generation strategy. So I'll talk a little bit about that today. Continuing on with our romance relationship theme, beyond the general definition of awareness, what we're talking about here in the life cycle is the very first stage in the process of learning about a new product, service, or idea, or in this case, your winery or your wine. So here are the 5 questions you need to answer to develop this awareness strategy. First, what are my sources of awareness? Second, what tools do I need to capture and analyze the information? 3, how do I know who my best customers are? And number 4, which sources will generate the best customers? And last, what action should I be taking with that information? So first off, what are some of the sources of awareness that all of you are aware of. What are some important awareness generating mechanisms? Word of mouth. Ooh, bingo. What else? Yes. Absolutely, and so word of mouth I would consider absolutely critical, and it's the most powerful form of awareness. And a term that I like to use is gatekeepers. All of you are probably familiar with the power of the concierge that you pointed out, Colby. Wait staff at restaurants, limo drivers, and very importantly, other wineries. What are some of the others? Events. Many of you participate in either Appalachian type events or other kinds of tasting events. Ads, print and online ads. The placement of your wine in the market is a way to generate awareness. Media coverage is obviously powerful. Search engines are powerful. And of course, social media. So here are the sources. What tools do you need? Again, the good news is this hammer is about as representative of the technology that's really needed to understand awareness. You need a customer database with a source field. How many of you guys that want such a thing have this here? Okay, meaning you've got the database, you know how to capture the source. This one's a lot harder. Processes to ensure that the staff is capturing the data. Anyone have that issue? Okay. This is very critical, and especially if you've been doing business without this process, it's very hard to change that, and you have to get creative about it. You've got to get your staff's buy-in on why this is so important, and I'm hoping that I'll help you get there today. And in some cases, you may need to incent them to turn this behavior around. The next thing you need is a reporting tool, so it's either within your customer database or something you can export to Excel. Everybody have such a thing? If you've got your database with the source field, you feel like you've got the tool to export this. Is that pretty fair to say? Okay. And just to give you kind of an example of what you can do with those rudimentary tools. This is a sample report. Oh, it doesn't work? It's not working yet? Now it's working. For some reason it needs to warm up. Can you guys hear me? I'll talk really loudly. So this is a mythical report, and this column here refers to the source. I listed just a few made-up sources here. Typically, you would have many, many more than this, and you would have those that are most relevant to you. So what I'm going to show you here is I'll just kind of take you through some of this, if you can bear with me. This is ad number one. This could be something in a local guest visitor guideline. The next column shows how many guests that your staff now is able to capture that came to the winery as a result of having that ad. Then you're looking at the total spending over 12 months for those guests with that source code. Then you divide spend by the number of guests to get the spend per guest. Then you're looking at what the cost for that ad was, $3,000. That's probably a combination of the placement and design fees to create that ad. And here you're getting your total cost per guest. And then on the far right, you're looking at your return on investment. How many of you guys, now you don't have to raise hands anymore, how many of you guys are looking at awareness at this level? If you've got these tools, this is so easy to do. And especially now when generating traffic is more important than ever, this is something you really need to be taking a look at, and is pretty powerful. So what this tells us is that this ad is actually generating a negative return on investment. The way I get that not a zero because 20 by 20, I'm actually taking into account here the margin, okay, cost of goods. So the difference between ad number 1 and ad number 2 is what? Same exact everything except one ad is more expensive. Okay, so you're actually generating a positive return with this ad. Simply everything else is exactly the same, ad 1 versus ad 2, but this one is $2,000. So if you can get this publication, adopt their fee, so that you have a positive ROI, it might be worth doing. But how are you going to know unless you do this? Another thing I wanted to point out is the 12-month spend here. This is just one very basic variable that I'm talking about today that relates to the value of the customer. You might want to look at something more such as if you have a wine club, you want to look at how many people are in the wine club. You might want to look at recency, frequency, monetary, but certainly 12-month spend is a good place to start. Another example here was just with the events. You didn't generate a lot of visitors, but they're spending a lot. But guess what? The cost is prohibitive and you have a negative ROI. So this is the kind of thing to be looking at. And unfortunately, your biggest source is going to be the unknown source. And in many cases, 100% of your source is unknown because you're not tracking this right now. And I would encourage you, if I leave you with one thing today, you simply start tracking what your source of traffic is. You're going to get a lot more intelligence about what the sources are and how you can capitalize on those that are generating the greatest profit. So, which sources bring my best customers? This simple, basic report can give you that answer. You simply create the customer record at the point of sale or at the time of the appointment. You need to ask people how they were referred, capture that source, and analyze that source quality. So once you get that data, what actions should you be taking? Well, then it's very self-evident. You'll probably find that word of mouth is one of your highest return on investment. And you need to formalize a process by which the gatekeepers are kept aware and happy. And going out 2 times a year, a lot of people feel that that's adequate. And in our experience, we think that something much more rigorous and regular is really critical. Events, depending on how well they perform, increase or decrease, add same thing. Media coverage, that's working for you very well. This will be your proof. Search engine. This is another point that's very important. Everybody's planning their travel right now using search tools, and if your site and the keywords are not optimized for search, you're not going to be maximizing the awareness. So you need to make sure that your site structure is optimized for search engine in terms of the keywords, in terms of site structure. And amazingly, almost every site that we look at has some very big areas of opportunity. So it's something that is really big bang for the buck to take a look at that. You need to determine the page rank for either your website overall or certain keywords. You need to look at that manually. You can also test pay-per-click ads if that's appropriate for your brand. Lots being talked about in this conference in terms of social media, but for awareness generation, it's absolutely key. We think that one of the most important pieces is to, if you're not involved in a kind of formal social media strategy, you should at least be formally monitoring what's going on out there in the blogosphere. Here are some of the ideas that you can leverage as far as what you can look at. Free sites that you can monitor, and then there are several paid options to monitor that. And then get into the conversation as it's appropriate, which you're hearing about throughout this conference. And very importantly, invest the needed time and resources. Don't dip your toe into this water unless you're able to really follow through. So, now that you're all ready to have been noticed and you're extremely attractive to your target audience, Pam was here to talk about what happens on the first date.
Okay, so you've been Yelped, you're on Facebook, you've been Twittered, your search engine is optimized, you've tried 4 different parties this year, they were all fabulous. You gained 5 pounds hosting outreach lunches, and then you walked it all out with your pavement and talked to everyone you could about your business. Now what do you do? Okay, you've got awareness. Now what we have to do is figure out how to take all that awareness and actually create a customer. So acquiring a new customer is actually converting a stranger into someone who will purchase your products and stay loyal to your brand. And part of that is done by designing a great customer experience for you. Now, let's be honest. This is, without a doubt, one of the hardest things that you can do. But it is the one thing that your competitors will have the hardest time recreating. So, what is the definition of a good customer experience? Well, effectively, this is the perception your customers have regarding all of their interactions with you along every touch point. Managing that customer experience is a discipline, and it's very much a deliberate effort. And it starts by planning things out, and then it ends by increasing your loyalty and exceeding your customers' expectations at every stage of their life cycle. The first step to designing a great customer experience is to start by establishing your business goals. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Could be you want to increase your revenues. Quite obviously, that increased revenues, higher sales, who wouldn't want that in this economy? Reducing costs, perhaps. Implementing an organized and designed program to increase profits by creating efficiencies and leveraging existing resources to do more. Maybe you want to gain a competitive edge and compete more effectively in every channel. Maybe you want to improve productivity, reduce the time spent on every task by communicating, prioritizing, and planning what your strategy is going to be around developing the customer experience. Maybe your goal is to build your brand. To your customer, building your brand for your brand, essence, effectively, represents all the intangible aspects of your product or service. What are the 4 elements of a great customer experience? Well, I realize that's a pretty fuzzy slide, but I'd like to see by a show of hands, who here is a reality TV watcher? Anybody? Okay. Well, this is actually a shot of The Bachelorette. And I'll be honest with you, while some days I really feel like my customer experience most closely resembles I Survived a Japanese Game Show, some days what I really want to do is to design my experience around the theme as if I was producing the show The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. And if each one of these guys knew the secret, the 4 elements to creating a great customer experience, you better believe they would go to the next step, which is engagement. What's the first part? Consistency. So consistency is being able to identify and anticipate the needs of your customer, ensuring that the right steps are taken at the right time and that the right offer is made to the right person. We're looking to satisfy our customers' requirements at this point, and any inconsistencies and disconnects in the channels dampen the experience and reduce the chance that you're actually going to get that customer's loyalty. What's the next part? Intentional. If every bachelor here knew when he got out of the limousine how to design his interaction with the bachelorette so that it was very intentional at every time that they met each other, definitely they would move along to loyalty. At every touch point, everyone in your organization should be able to clearly articulate and understand what their role is in delivering the customer experience. Procedures, policies, technology, all of your training is all designed specifically towards meeting the needs of your customers and exceeding their expectations. By extension, creating the great customer experience that you're looking for. And of course, how do we distinguish one bachelor from another, one experience from another? It has to be differentiated. Simply put, if your customers can't discern their experience with you versus their experience with someone else, you're not going to move them along the continuum, and you're not going to achieve your company goals. The experience that you deliver to your customer has to produce, again, using our bachelor analogy, an emotional connection. And at this point, if you're not differentiated, what you do is create sameness. And the problem with sameness in a customer experience is that the only way that you're actually differentiating yourself from your competitor, and the only way that you're really competing, is on price. So if we hit all three of those targets, how do we wrap it up? It's definitely it has to create value. So this is the validating step. After the first three elements have been addressed, if you have a consistent, intentional, and a differentiated strategy, then you ask yourself the question, does this add value to my company and to my customer? And I just want to take a moment here actually to note that customer in some cases is your external customer, but I think it's equally as important in designing a great customer experience that you keep in mind who your internal customers are. And you want to add value to everyone's experience. So what are the steps in designing and managing a great customer experience? Well, the first part of the course is what we're talking about here, is to actually understand their customer life cycle, so that you realize along every single step where you are and what the next step should be. Definitely need to define your experience priorities. What is it along every segment of this life cycle continuum that you want to achieve first? Absolutely understand and define your brand values. This is your benchmark that drives behavior and performance, not only of your customers, but of your internal folks as well, of your staff. And then, important to agree on customer touch points. At all areas of communication, every time the customer touches your brand, agree on what those all are, starting with the awareness and working down to your loyalty. And then, last but not least, once you've figured out your strategy, very important to write it down. Figure out how to develop effectively a roadmap of your customer experience. And this is where all of the documentation really starts to begin. Excuse me. What's important here in a customer experience map, when you really start to think about it, is that you'll realize that there are disconnects in the service that you provide. And if you really look at it through the customer's eyes, you'll realize that although we've grown tolerant to some of our own internal processes, and they may not be a big deal to us, they may be roadblocks for the customer. And to create an experience map, by the way, you can speak to either Tammy or Jennifer, and they'll be happy to help you out with that. Step 2, identify the core experience areas. Where is it along that continuum that you're not delivering the right kind of experience or the experience that you want to provide? This will enable you to really see your business from the customer's point of view. And I recommend that you just take a look and try to examine places where it's a low cost and a high benefit place to improve. This is not the place necessarily where you have to make capital investments in systems or IT. Perhaps it's something as simple as changing the staff schedule. Or perhaps it's something like bringing in additional help at the right times, or good customer service training. There are a lot of different ways that are very low cost and very high benefit. Step 3, once you've identified all of this, implement the improvements. Conversion, that's a stopwatch. For any of you who can't see that, that's somebody who's holding a stopwatch up and they're speed dating. So we're going to try and convert our customer now, and we're going to drive home the customer experience. What are the hallmarks of a great customer experience, and how do you know that you're converting? First of all, it's connected. We're focusing on the things with strong connections to overall values, company values. The way to know that you've got consistency and you're connected is ensure that everyone's actions contribute to the overall success of your plan. Last but not least, this is more of a qualitative. The ability of a process, particularly customer service or customer experience management, is often enhanced or bombarded by the buy-in of your stakeholders. So sometimes the resources and the skills of your stakeholders, the cultural factors that affect the outcome, these are qualitative levers that you can pull to create a great customer experience. Second is, of course, the actionable. These are metrics that you implement, and the ones at the lowest level of your organization have the highest actionability. Consistently focus on the most actionable items are absolutely essential for moving the needle towards the bigger picture metrics. Reward your employees for doing the right thing, demonstrating consistent behavior, and whose actions clearly support your customer experience objectives. Good customer metrics are predictive. They emphasize concrete, they have a strong emphasis to cause and effect. In this case, what you want to do is track your action plan progress using tallies, scorecards, dashboards, or any other monitoring method that you can think of that will help you to predict how your customers may act once you make a change. And of course, they're sustained. Set up the right environment to keep producing strong results. Sometimes metrics can be mismanaged or misinterpreted. What we mean by gold mines versus landmines, for instance. How many of you may have somebody on your staff who you would call a wine club shark? Who is, their objective in life is to get that $10 or that $20 that they receive for signing up a wine club member. And it's important to realize that if you're emphasizing the metric of wine club signups, not to overemphasize that, because you may inadvertently setting up a culture in your tasting room where the sharks are eating the minnows. The other good one is your team incentives. Anytime you're going to set up an incentive for your staff, step back and look at it and say, all right, if we take these metrics, if we incentivize people on them, is it going to drive a team or is it going to drive the individuals? What are the consequences of both? So how do we measure success? Once we've developed awareness, we've taken that guest and we've turned it into a customer. There are 4 basic metrics that we really advocate everyone should track. First, of course, is your average order value. This is the pulse of the tasting room, and it effectively just measures the average revenue generated by each customer, and this is sales divided by visitor traffic. Now let's talk a little bit about visitor traffic. How do you measure that? Who in this room has a counter at their door? Anybody? Okay. Who measures visitor traffic by number of tastes? Transactions on the register? Okay. Does anyone here have a tally behind your tasting bar and people have tick marks? Okay. All right. Still doing that. Well, do us a favor. Eliminate the tick marks. A counter, honestly, at your door costs about $200. It's far more reliable and it's far more efficient than the tally behind the register. Now, important too in your average order value is to pay attention to your wine versus non-wine. If an order is comprised of mostly non-wine merchandise, you get to determine what percentage that actually should be. Then perhaps your staff's not doing a good enough job of actually selling the product that they were focused on, which is the wine. Second one, contact information conversion. This is the ratio of successful mailing list signups as compared to the total number of visitors, and it's expressed in a percentage. So what is the percentage of guests coming in your door that you've counted in some way other than the tick marks that are actually capturing contact information? Then there's club and web conversion. And this is actually for the tasting room, this is actually a percentage of casual visitors who convert to wine club. For your web, could be this is just your content views or these are website views that actually revenue per case. This is an important metric and one that a lot of people don't actually track. This is a great way to know whether or not the promotions that you've designed are working. Are your customers being traded up when they have established a sale? And are your sales associates asking for additional sales? So at this point, you're aware, yes has been converted, you're now a customer. And the next question is, how do we get engaged? For that, I have only one more thing to say, which is, Dan, do you accept this rose?
Oh my gosh, I'm speechless. Okay, I have no idea. So that's a hard act to follow. We'll talk a little bit about engagement. Perhaps. So I promise this is the last straw poll today. But if anybody in the room's been engaged to be married, please raise your hand. Wow. We've got some experts in the room. Now keep your hand up if you actually married the person that you were engaged to. Okay. Pretty good conversion, I would say. Keep your hand up if you're still married to the person that you got engaged to the very first time. Wow, I'm surprised. You know, I mean, it's a bit of a statement of marriage in the United States. But I'd have to say that my experience has been, as direct marketers in the wine industry, we're better at marriage than we are at getting our customers to loyal. And I say that because of the size and shape of that funnel that Tammy talked about at the beginning of the presentation. You know, we see about 100,000 visitors a year through our tasting rooms. But what we consider to be loyal customers on the other end of that funnel is a trickle. And so the question today is, as direct marketers, how can we change that trend? You know, I think I was dubbed for the engagement loyalty phase of this, but I took it on willingly because I believe that this is the area where we leave the most opportunity on the table. It's been my experience in this business that most people believe that once we've got someone signed up for club, or that we've got them into the database for marketing, that all of our work is done, right? All we got to do is we got to batch their credit card, we got to send it off to our fulfillment vendor, we see the money fall out of the sky and into our P&L. My belief is that that's where the work begins, all right? And I'd like to talk to you about a few of the things that we do in our business to help push that customer along and toward the loyalty phase, and a few ways that we measure that, okay? So I always like to start with a little definition. So engagement, it's a noun, right? The act of engaging or the state of being engaged. Who in the room feels engaged today? So you're not going to raise your hand because I said it was the last straw poll. But betrothal, probably my favorite of the definitions here. Who feels betrothed? I'm not sure. You'd have to ask my wife. Pledge, obligation, agreement, that really is around our wine club program, right? How many people want our people to feel like they're obligated to an agreement, right? We probably have some lawyers in our business that want to make sure that that's the case. I like this one, an encounter, a conflict, or a battle. How many people feel engagement is a battle, right? If you feel like you're at war with your customer, then we've probably got something that we need to talk about. A financial obligation, okay? To most people, I think a wine club subscription is just that. It's a financial obligation. You count on that cash flow. It's become a big part of everybody's business, right? Well, I have to say that in our organization, we see this as a marketing endeavor, right? At Gallo, direct sales isn't really what we do. I mean, we are reliant on three-tier distribution, our wholesale and retail partners. What I do is kind of an anomaly in the company, to be honest with you. I'm part of a marketing organization. And if you approach it as a marketing endeavor, as opposed to a P&L-based business, perhaps some of this will start to make some sense to you. Now, not to say that finance isn't important, okay? I've got a P&L and a budget that I'm beholden to, but at the same time, that's not what's driving me. That's actually the measure of my success at this. The period of time between proposal and marriage is considered an engagement. You know, I kind of fibbed a little bit when I said I married the person that I got engaged to, because I actually married the second person I got engaged to. Now, if you talk to my first fiance, she might not feel the same about me as my wife. Well, I'm not sure. Perhaps they both feel the same way about me, depending on what the day is. But at the same time, that stick-to-itiveness that we're trying to build in consumer commitment, very analogous to marriage. And a lot of the skills and a lot of the functions are the same. I'm going to add one last point and say that today engagement to us means a set of tactics as effective direct marketers that we use to transition consumers from adopters, mere adopters, people that like us, to loyal advocates of the brand. All right, now I am going to sort of qualify a little bit of what is about to follow. There's a lot of discussion around social media. I think that that's one of the reasons we're all here and so attentive. And I have taken a decidedly sort of low-tech approach to this, because I think there's a lot of people here talking about what you can do to engage consumers in social media. And trust me, I'm listening too. But here is a point that we all talked about as a group. If you're not doing some of the things that we're talking about today, like focusing on your customer experience, I heard Pete Bradshaw say, when's the last time you called your 800 number to see what they say? When's the last time you logged onto your website and joined your Contact Us to see what happens on the back end? Unless you have that stuff taken care of, most of what's being talked about here really isn't going to make that big a difference in your business. Because until you have a sustained commitment, until it's embedded in your organization, most of these tactics probably aren't going to work for you. Okay? So, let's talk about some rules of engagement, right? Understand the terms of the relationship. When's the last time you read your wine club sign-up form? To remember the promise that you're making to consumers. Are you really acknowledging their commitment to you? Keep your promises. Wow, that's a big one. And guess where I got this content? I sat down and talked to my wife and said, what are the things that are really important to you in our relationship? Know what I like. Surprise me. Celebrate our anniversary. Who's really good at that? Right? I just celebrated my 14th anniversary with my wife. She forgot our 13th. And I still haven't let her forget that to this day. All right? Because that's kind of my out for every other time she might forget. Listen to them. All right? Communication is two-way. And if we're not listening to our customer, how engaged do you think they feel? You know, a lot of the piece this morning was about the active listening and the responsiveness piece of social media. Well, our customers are talking to us in a lot of ways, not just on Twitter and Facebook. They're talking to us every time they call up to quit. They talk to us every time they decide not to take us up on a special offer. They talk to us every time they can't get their wine. Right? So unless we're listening to them on all of those different levels, I'm not sure making sure that our Facebook page is up to date today might be the best use of our time. All right? And for you as a direct marketer, you have to figure out how to balance that in your life. Where am I going to apply my resources? What are the things that are important to me? Today we're talking about keeping your eye on the prize, and that's loyalty. If you couldn't tell, that's a picture of somebody jumping through a hoop. I feel like that every day. So, acknowledgement. Why are we going to talk about acknowledgement, right? So we've got a consumer that's been converted, right? They're in our database. They're now a customer. They've made a purchase for us. They have a promise for a purchase. What's the next thing that we do? Well, in many cases, it's a program email, perhaps. At the most, that people send to you saying, hey, thanks for joining the club. I like that comment that Pete Bradshaw had this morning about warming up that space, right? How impersonal is a non-personal email? Is that really working? There's actually the phase of my office we call the big hug, all right? So somebody's had a great time at your winery, they've joined the wine club, they're feeling euphoric. What do most brands do? They forget about them until it's time to charge their credit card for their first club shipment. And if that's what you're doing, then you have to ask yourself, how are you contributing to your own attrition, right? Who in this room has seen declining attrition in their brand? Well, I have one brand that's declining attrition, but not all the brands, okay? So trust me, attrition's not all about your customer. So much of it's about how you treat them and how you listen to them. And this is where we get off on the right foot, right? And so that first step we take with that consumer, in many instances, is the most important step. I've heard a lot of people that do what I do talk about the terms of cancellation before taking first shipment, right? So we like to tell our customers how it's going to be. If they call to cancel before they take their first shipment, say, sorry, you signed up for at least one or two or whatever your rules are. Well, if they're calling to cancel before their first shipment, Who's done something wrong? Probably us, right? We haven't acknowledged them, we haven't talked to them the way they want to be talked to. I would really consider you take a hard look at this phase in the customer life cycle for you. So, it needs to be personal and timely, all right? One of the practices we put in last year is every time one of our reps signs up a club member, they sit down within the first 4 days and handwrite a personal letter, personal note to those folks. We made postcards just so that that person feels like that relationship that they started in the tasting room is going to continue. It's got to be an appropriate format for your brand. Now, I'm also a brand marketer, and I want to make sure that whatever that communication is feels right for this brand. Could be direct mail. For me, my preference isn't email for this step. I actually like to send people something. I like to get something in my hand once I join. I can remember being a kid and sitting in box tops off cereal and waiting by the letterbox for something to come from Procter & Gamble, to be honest with you, or Nestle, Quaker Oats, whoever it was, that acknowledged that I had jumped into their program and some promise of what is to come. We're going to try and do a few things in acknowledgement as well. Establish their preferences. If you don't take the opportunity to find out do they even want to hear about events at the winery, they may live on the East Coast. It may not be not just what kind of wine do they like, but how do they like to communicate? Are they plugged into Facebook? Is that something that's interesting to them? Do they prefer a phone call? What sort of things do they like to do at home? What are the lifestyle issues that you can relate to them on? It's all very valuable information. Validate their contact information. I mean, this is a real business purpose, right? So if we don't know that they're knocking on the right door, I see so many abandoned club members and databases just because we don't have the good information in front of them. Reinforce the benefits and the terms of the relationship. There's a place to remind them why they joined up in the first place. Communicate your privacy policy, right? Why aren't people listening to your email? I mean, does anybody have an open rate better than 60% of the room? No. Why? Because people don't trust email communication. And if you don't reiterate your privacy policy and tell them how you're going to communicate to them and how important it is to protect their information, why should I listen to you? You want to get whitelisted so that your email is actually getting through. Drive to your website to set up an online profile. Right? Is there anybody in the room that's got more than half of their club actually active in their website? Very good. I'm proud of you. I want to talk to you afterwards to figure out what's getting you past 50% because you know, the amount of club members that are actually going to a website to find more information and deepen that relationship, very, very small, okay? Facebook might be a change to that dynamic, but, you know, very honestly, we do some things to get people online because that's where we continue to see what's going on in their pattern. Present a value-added offer. Right? So this is the follow-up after the sale. Before I'm going to send you your first shipment, hey, would you like to buy some of the wine you enjoyed in the tasting room? Pam was talking about revenue per case or average order value. I heard some talk this morning about the lifetime value of the customer. I believe the lifetime value of the customer in this business is so low because we really don't even ask in many cases, or the way that we ask isn't the appropriate way. So how do we know if we're doing any good? Well, we know about return bounce rates, open click-through, preview payments. I mean, open rates are kind of a shifty place to be anyway. Order rate, meaning how many orders do we get for every offer that we put out there. I have to say, when I started this business almost a decade ago, that was very, very low. We're working on ways to raise that. Probably the most important metric here is acquisition cost. How many folks in the room really understand what it costs you to acquire a consumer? And is that cost really relevant to the value of that customer? And would you spend $150 to get someone who's buying wine on the installment plan at $50 a pop? Okay? Finance guys in my business probably don't like that equation. All right? Marketers don't mind having them in the database, and they see our acquisition cost is relatively low compared to what they're doing in the marketplace. But for us, because I'm actually a standalone business at Gallo, and I don't get any support from brand marketers, I have to drive my own business, this piece is really important. So if you sit down and follow Pam's suggestion and map out the experience everywhere along there where you have a hard cost in terms of print collateral, incentives that you pay to your staff, comp tastings, discounts. Do you really incorporate discounts into your thinking every time you make a business decision? Right? What does 20% mean? 25%, 30%? That is a direct cost to your margin, to be honest with you. And if you're not considering that, I would say step back and take another look, all right? Because we wouldn't acquire a consumer at any cost. We have to do it efficiently and effectively. Okay? Now it's time to actually send them someone. There might be a few things that you do in between acknowledgement and shipment. You start talking about saturation and how much they're actually going to listen. We see shipment as a three-step process. I would venture to say most of the people in the business see shipment as a two-step process. Right? There's preparation, working out logistics, is the wine in the right place, my fulfillment vendor actually on the ball. We're managing declined credit cards. We're doing all those things we can to get ready, putting our communications together. And then it comes shipment week, right? We're going to batch credit cards. We're going to see how much money falls out of the sky. We're going to run that batch. We're going to rerun. We're going to rerun. Depending on how much persistence you have, might run half a dozen times. We're going to correct the deceptions, that means shipping addresses, those sorts of things. And then the wine leaves the fulfillment vendor, it's on its way to the consumer. And I think most people that I've talked to believe that that's where the process ends. For us, it's where it begins. About 2.5 years ago, when I started looking at cancellation reasons in our clubs, delivery problems were the #1 reason people were quitting. Today it's financial, but I would say right behind them, it's delivery problems. So we put in a program called Where's the Baby? What does that mean? Every 2-bottle box that leaves the warehouse is considered to have a living, breathing baby in the box. And we treat the urgency with which that box has to get to its rightful parents with the same urgency we would as if it was our child. Because you know what? The consumers on the other end that are waiting for that wine, it is their baby. They've been to the winery, they've had this incredible experience on their honeymoon, and they're waiting. Like I was that kid waiting for Quisp cereal to send me my little spinner beanie cap, right? So I keep asking my mom to buy that cereal. These folks are waiting by the door for you to get the wine to them. How good are we at that? Most of us don't see ourselves as direct shippers. We are direct shippers. We may farm that out to third party, but at the same time, we can't get the box in the back door. What happens? Returns? Who likes returns? I hate them. I can't even tell you how low our return rate is because the people in our business know that if we can't get it in the back door, we're not in business. We actually put somebody into our business to do nothing but look at first and second delivery attempts. We're on the phone, we're calling the customer, we're trying to get the wine to them. Right? If you're not doing this, I can assure you, take a look at the ROI of putting a staff member in to manage the service of getting the package to them, because honestly, the transaction's not complete until the wine's in their hand, safely and to their satisfaction. All right? So let's talk about a few tips around shipment. Might be some things you're thinking about, not thinking about. Leverage technology to facilitate delivery process. So our fulfillment vendor has extranet. We're on the extranet 20 times a day, looking for packages going in the back door. If it's not getting there, we're trying to figure out why. Articulate your cancellation policy inside the shipment window. What does that mean? We send out a service email before every shipment week saying, hey, the wine's coming. Somebody calls inside that window before the box leaves the warehouse. Our service people on the phone know what to say to them. We let them know that wine's already on the way. We'd be happy to take that wine back, and regretfully we cancel your membership, but we're going to charge you the shipment in both directions. We'll charge you the shipment cost in both directions. Lots of times that helps make the decision for the consumer. I hate to be this way about the relationship. If they're going to leave me anyway, I'm concerned about getting them back someday, but at the same time there's a real business reason behind this. I believe wine subscription programs are like buying furniture on the installment plan, right? I'll take a $600 customer any day over somebody that wants 6 shipments at $50, $300 customer, right? We spend a lot of time trying to generate people to take a wine on the installment plan, but there's always some terms around that, right? So under what situation would I actually take the wine back? Develop a refund strategy for refuse to return shipment. Know what to tell the consumer when they've got the wine at their house and calling you saying that they don't want it. Waste savvy means against a business opportunity. We talked a little bit about that. So here's some of the metrics that we look at around shipping. Successful shipments is the number of delivered shipments against total active members. This is something that my wine club manager hears about every day. Where's your successful shipment ratio on this shipment? Are we actually getting it to the people? On a previous band I used to run, I walked in there with some proud and we had 5,000 members. By the time I dug in for my first shipment, we had somewhere around 4,100 because 900 weren't even listening. All right, don't get caught in that trap. Average delivery time. How many of you can say that you're actually getting the wine in their hands in the 5 business days that you promised? We track it from the time we charge their credit card to the time the wine's in their hand. Remember, this is part of the promise. If we don't deliver on that promise, one of the first reasons that these people are going to want to quit. Attrition, we all know how to do that. That's a painful calculation these days. Reorder rate, how many people are buying wine again? Web traffic, how many people are going to the web for information or to update their information? Composition, right? So, what's the club mix? How many people are shipment versus pickup? How much is in California and outside California? We actually do a lot of things for our California customers we don't do for anybody else. It's a lot better business environment. Shipping gross margin. You making money on shipping, you lose your bottom line on shipping. Right? If you're not looking at the gross margin, how can you make decisions about things like, well, we shouldn't say anymore, free shipping, right? But how can we make sure that we're managing our shipping costs effectively? So I'm going to kind of roll through a few other things that we do that help deepen this relationship. Won't spend a whole lot of time here. But events, commit to a calendar. Think about one signature event that you're really known for, okay? You need brand essence, you need a plan. Direct mail and phone solicitation is probably the most effective way we have getting people in. And one of my wife's things, she's been in service forever, don't forget who the party's for. It's not for you, it's for them. We're always looking for how many new guests we get at a party. Is there an ROI on this event? SWOT analysis. I mean, why do we do events? Do we love going to events? Sure we do. But there's a business reason behind it. So we're trying to create some a depth of experience. Here's some other touch points. We do a biannual sales campaign by phone because you know what? People like to hear from someone at the winery. Hi, my name's Dan. I'm calling from Louis Martini today. How are you? It's beautiful in Napa Valley. Thank you for asking. When's the next time you're coming back? Lead with a service call. They see you got your last shipment. Did you enjoy those wines? And then give them a 2-tiered value proposition. We've got a wine at this discount. You might like it for your holiday table. We're also about to release our high-end Cabernet. Would you be interested? Website, you know, with everything that's going on in social media, are you really paying attention to your site to make sure that you're driving people there? Are they updating their information? Is there good educational information out there? We do look at how many of our club members are visiting the site and how much that translates to sales. So a lot of people believe that retention starts when somebody calls to cancel. How many of you have written retention strategies for the people that are on the phone for you, so that if I call to cancel, you've got a couple of things you can offer me? It's out there. That's where we think it is. I believe in active retention strategies. Retention starts at the moment they join the club. Here's some things that we do. We believe in personal touch programs. And yes, social media is great, but nothing, to me, substitutes for helping them relive the winery experience. We've got people that are visiting a winery. We actually take photos in a vignette. We send it to them as a sort of postcard afterwards so they can continue to relive that experience. I tell people there's 2 ways I measure my own success in my business. If I'm on your refrigerator magnet with a postcard from the winery and you're looking at it every day next to your kid's school report, or if my website is in your favorites in your toolbar. Acknowledge milestones. Don't forget their anniversary. Remember, everybody used to say it's 18 months. It's not 18 months anymore, guys. You better start thinking about this in 12 months. What are you going to do for them? Send a token of your appreciation. Surprise them. Conduct a survey. Right? We do 1 survey per brand per year to listen to them, to hear what's important. Guess what the #1 thing of one of our clubs came back to us in our last survey? They want to learn more about wine from us. They want educational resources. Big learning for us. Thankfully, at Gallup, we have a lot of those resources. We're going to open that up to our club members. It's a retention strategy. It's a way to keep them engaged to where they'll never think about dropping your club. They'll drop somebody else's because they don't get the same benefit that they get from you. How do we know if we're doing well here? Well, tenure. A lot of people think tenure is the time that they've been in your club. We actually measure it by number of transactions. And that'll talk a little bit about my next slide. We look at RFM, but we don't only look at RFM. We've actually got some other scales that we're looking at now. I'll talk a little bit about that. Cancellation reasons. Why are people quitting your club? It's good to know why they're quitting. Do something about it, okay? And I see a lot of people taking notes and stuff. All these presentations will be available on the WITS website in about a week, and so you'll be able to get some of this information. So I'm going to talk about loyalty. And loyalty for us is, it's the nirvana, right? No matter how many tens of thousands of people we have in our database, I could probably count my most loyal customers on all my fingers and toes. Hard to say, but it's probably true. We've got some things in our toolbox. We've got database segmentation. I see Jeremy in the back of the room. Last year he gave a great presentation on how to cut your database into deciles and how to understand how 1/10 chunks of your database will start to make a lot more sense. This is where we start mapping purchase history. We're looking for patterns, defining their preferences, sorting by RFM. So this is a way to take a big bunch of data and get it down to something that you can actually use. Here's one of those 80-20 rules. Probably not what you want to hear, but 20% of your database does 80% of your business. If you don't know those 20%, you're not doing things about them, then you got a problem. It's hard to get into this business. CRM activities. There's plenty of vendors here that can help you in this regard, but until you have a dynamic customer view and understand across all your channels, club, tasting room, website, and start using contact management to understand how people are relating to you and the things that you're promising them, setting reminders to your staff that's engaged with this effort, I would say it's hard to move on to the next step. So here's an idea that if you pick anything up from this discussion today, there's a difference between passive club members and active club members for us. Passive club members are just accepting shipments, they're not doing anything else in your channel. All right? Active club members are actually responding to special offers, coming to events, having more transactions with you. It's a very easy way to split your database and to see who's really active. The question you got to ask is, how do I get passive members to become active? How do I get active members to become loyal? Okay? We've got this concept in our business that's starting to center around intimacy and commitment, right? I'm 14 years married, like I said, and I'm still trying to figure this thing out. But intimacy. We know where they live. We have their credit card number. We know how old they are. Sometimes we know their dog's name. We know what they like to drink. In terms of consumer marketing, fairly intimate relationships. We have a whole set of tactics in our business to drive intimacy, because intimacy drives commitment. Once they're active, if you leverage their preferences, we can start deepening commitment, and commitment is what equals loyalty. All right? So a passive member is just taking shipments. We know some stuff about them, but they don't come back and reorder. We don't talk to them. They don't answer the phone. I can't have a more intimate relationship with them. Challenge yourself. And where this came from was RFM wasn't enough for us. We say, what's beyond RFM? What's more meaningful than RFM? And this is where we start to try and get into the psyche of the consumer. Okay? Dangerous thing. Identify your top customers. This is where RFM can be your friend. Rank active members. You need to define that criteria. Reach out to them with personal communication. When's the last time you picked up the phone and called your best customers? My 10 best customers across all my brands got a personal holiday gift from me and a handwritten card around the holidays. I got 10 personal letters back from them that said it was one of the most meaningful things that they've seen. They're all still my customers today. In this economy, what I challenge my team to do is don't lose our core customers. Don't lose the people that got us here. And then we'll start working on how do we get more of them. Offer to host a special occasion for them. We just did a 50th birthday party for one of our longtime club members. I tell you what, she brought us 20 more club members. And finally, what's their reward? What did they get out of this by being loyal customers of ours? We do invitation-only events. They don't pay a thing. They get one-on-one time with a winemaker. They taste. We did a 5-decade retrospective of Martini Cabernet with them. We did a beautiful vineyard day, one-on-one 10 consumers of White Martini. And you know what? This is what keeps them in our brand. Talk about engagement. Right? I've heard a lot of talk about how social media is going to keep people engaged. I can promise you nothing's more powerful than this. We offer in-home tastings to our best customers. We actually go to their home. I've done it in North Carolina, I've done it in Iowa, I've done it in Michigan. We go to their home and host a tasting for 20 of their friends. It is the most powerful acquisition retention build strategy we have. Now, not everybody has these resources, but if you can do it for one of your best customers this year, it'll make a difference to them. Lastly, we give them a lot of personal attention. Concierge services, corporate gifting. These are the things that make them feel like our brand is of service to them. It's a valuable service, a valuable part of their life. And I challenge you as grant partners to think about how you can create those opportunities in your business.